happy with that. Right, okay, Albina, I'll hand over to you to start the session.
Thank you very much, Georgina. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to wherever in the world you are. I'm in UK, so for me it would be good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here today and welcome you all to International Virtual Learning in 2020 breakout session as part of the World Teknologi Universities Congress. I'm looking forward to connecting with all of you today. I'll start with my introduction. My name is Albina Szeles. I'm interim co-director at the Center for Global Engagement at Coventry University. And I am going to be chairing the session today and introducing one of the topics. The session is about hearing from international academics and leaders and educators, and we will look at experiences of virtual learning during 2020. We will also reflect on how both institutions and students have had to adapt to virtual learning during an international crisis, and what it might mean for designing higher education programs in the future. I would like to say welcome and thank you to all the speakers we've got today. First of all, I would like to introduce Professor Mushtak Al-Atabi, CEO and Professor of Malaysia campus at Heriot-Watt University. Would you like to wave it once I introduce so everyone knows who you are? Or we've lost Professor Mushtak?
I'm here and I'm waving. Can't you see me?
No, we can't see you. Okay. Yes, it worked now. So welcome and thank you very much for contributing to the session. The next speaker is Professor Mohd Ismid, Vice Chancellor at Universiti Teknologi Malaysia. Hello and thank you for joining us today. We have Professor Matthew Docherty, digital learning developer at University of Applied Sciences in Upper Austria.
Thank you. Hello.
And Professor Peter Kersten at Hamm-Lippstadt University of Applied Sciences. Might be a bit of delay there.
To be here. Thank you.
Welcome and thank you very much. So I'm sure we are all now webinar wizards. We know how those things operate. If you could follow Georgina's suggestions in terms of muting your microphones while we're having the presentations. As Georgina mentioned, we will have a Q&A session at the end of it. So there will be an opportunity to ask questions to the panelists or raise any comments that you might have. So please use the comments section on the side or raise hand function when we move to a QA panel. So we won't delay it any further. I'm going to start with the first presentation today. I will introduce one of the tools that we use at Coventry University, collaborative online international learning. So if you just bear with me a second, I'll try to share my slides. Please shout at me once I manage to do that. Perfect. Right, can everyone see it? Brilliant. So, collaborative online international learning at Coventry University. This session is very much about online learning, but from international perspective. And this is something that 2020 made us realize that it's more important than ever. I don't know how many of you know more about Coventry University, but we are a very internationalized institution. The center I work for and other international units at Coventry University are part of international strategy and corporate plan, and we work towards making sure that whatever we do it's at heart of what we're doing in our institution, and the approach we adopt is very much about ensuring that all students have international experience. And of course, we work on activities that everyone tries to develop, like mobility. And 2020 was a year that was very challenging for all of us, while our students were dispersed all over the world, and many of our programs couldn't go ahead because of travel bans and local laws and restrictions. But one of the things that we've always been doing and we want to do more of is international virtual learning, that virtual or online learning that brings those international perspectives to the table and provides that international experience for all of our students, regardless of where they are and what they are studying. So one of the tools that we've been using for a few years now, it's collaborative online international learning. This is a term that was initially adopted in the US, so many of you might be familiar with that, and became very popular this year, very much in demand. And we find it really helpful to provide students with truly international experience. It enables us to embed interaction within the curriculum and connect the students using internet-based tools with other students or professionals, connect academics with other academics and professionals from all over the world to engage in those meaningful exchanges, whether they are discipline-specific or multidisciplinary. This is something that has been on our agenda for a while, not only because of the discussion around climate change and how we can minimize the impact of our activities on that, but also because we do believe that has an impact on students. So the way we define COIL and how that differs from typical activities as webinars or activities that we would have between the students in our regular classrooms, which many of them are very much online classrooms at the moment. We do have a huge proportion of students coming from diverse backgrounds. So we have that great insight from all over the world. But what we're trying to bring different perspectives as well, different academic perspective and different perspectives of people studying in different places or working in different places where we embed that interactions with professionals as well. Every core project needs to have learning outcomes and internationalized learning outcomes to make sure that learning of the students and that experience is bringing what we intended to do. And all the students need to reflect and need to interact as part of it as well, to make sure that this is very much experiential activity rather than simply having one-way communication stream. So the reason why we're doing this and why we've been doing that for a number of years and why we're concentrating on that since the hit of the pandemic and focusing on it very much is because it has great benefits to the students. We all want our students to be global graduates. We want to open them to careers in different countries and in places, even locally, where that diversity is part of daily lives. We want them to have that experience of interacting and engaging and collaborating with people over the internet-based tools, connecting over different time zones and connecting with people who might have different perspectives, as I said, and different way of working and different way of behaving. So they develop those intercultural competences, but they also develop their digital skills and they transfer this knowledge in a context where those borders are more visible than ever. So obviously there's also benefits to staff, institutions and the local community of using tools like that. We have strong engagement from academics, and we've had that for a number of years. And the feedback that we hear from staff engaging in COIL projects is that they see it as their own personal development as well. We all work very hard. We all are very busy in our daily lives and at work. And now we've got more challenges than ever. And this academic year has brought a lot of challenges for all the academics in our institutions when we went into a local lockdown, and we've had to transfer a lot of our activities first to a bit more remote teaching and learning, but then to fully online and more interactive experience for the students. So having an opportunity to work with other academics from all over the world and see how they approach their discipline teaching is a way to develop their own competences, their intercultural competence, also digital literacy, and see how people are teaching and share the best practice. So far, it's been an opportunity to travel for many academics as well, because they would use an opportunity to develop those core projects with partners and work that we've got. At the moment, it all needs to start online because we are not traveling yet. But that would very much lead to also the travel for research and publications, whether it's about COIL itself and the experiences that they've developed, or it actually is about research and publications because they've developed strong relationships with the counterparts they are working at, and we've done a research which is discipline specific. So it definitely helps us to develop partnerships as well. In the current context where we very much are looking inwards and we're trying to find solutions to the challenges and problems that we are facing now, it's good to work with partner institutions and share the best practice and make it stronger partnerships, especially in the situations where we very much relied on partnerships for certain purposes, like student exchanges or partnerships for research or various other initiatives as that only sole purpose. When it comes to internationalization, to especially send students abroad and provide them with an international experience, whether when it is actually very much experiential experience, it's very much COIL gives that opportunity where it's less, it's quick to establish and it's very cost effective because it requires a bit of a staff time to start that. To innovate that pedagogy and innovate the curriculum, so it does not require an investment from institutions. And at the end of the day, we see how those conversations and those interactions support local communities in institutions where we have a lot of students from local communities coming to study with us that never had the opportunity to travel. COIL provides that solution where we can internationalize and develop their global competences while they are at home. So it's a great internationalization at home experience. So in terms of how we've been doing so far, we have a strategy that helps us to deliver to deliver our agenda and helps us to deliver more and more projects. We've been engaging with hundreds of institutions so far over the past few years. From this year, we are aiming to give a COIL opportunity to all students across our institutions. So we are developing new models, and to make that online international learning truly international, we've to have the support of the management and the structures behind to to support that quite rapid growth until now and I guess in the future as well. So I have a couple of examples before I finish, because I understand that this is a term that might be quite vague. We do give a lot of academic freedom. So we want the projects to be designed that they fit within the curriculum, fit with what the objectives are, and they work for disciplines or they work for multidisciplinary projects. So we enable the academics to find a common ground as far as they make sure that it is interactive, it has a reflective component, and the learning outcomes are internationalized and relevant. One of the projects that's been incredibly successful is a project in theater, where the students have been working with partner institutions for a number of years, and they basically perform Shakespeare in different locations. So obviously they have a number of opportunities to prepare for that and interact with students in totally different locations to make sure that although they are based in different places, that performance is as they would be in one place altogether. But not all of the projects are complicated like that. Some of the projects, especially in languages or humanities or business, might concentrate on the interaction where it's based more on discussion topics. So that's something that we are looking for partners to engage in and get onto that journey. As I said, it's something that's been in demand this year and since the start of the pandemic. So we've had loads of inquiries from our contacts and partners and institutions that heard about what we are doing and what we're trying to achieve and try to join us on this journey. I guess the future of international virtual learning for us specifically is about having more core projects, but also adding new forms of virtual mobility. And we are hoping that institutions all over the world that adapt to more online learning will look at the forms of connecting across different institutions, connecting across different borders, and enable those connections to, I guess, help to develop better future for all of us and create societies that are interculturally competent in the future and create those global graduates that we are all aiming for. So I guess that's all from me. As I said, there will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end to all the panelists in the Q&A. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen at the moment, and I'll open the floor to our next panelist that will introduce the topic of positive education and bridging the human gap.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to share my slides. Please let me know if my slides are appearing.
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Sorry. Just give me a second. Create computer. These are the nerve-wracking moments where you really wished. Yeah.
Much easier.
One of the lessons over the past few months, I'm sure for everyone, was more patience towards technology.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, while I'm trying to share my slides, I wanted to talk about positive education and its role in in preparing the workforce of the future. And this is something that has been, I believe, in motion for quite some time. But somehow the challenges that we are facing now with COVID has made the journey towards this a bit faster. And I think I am not having any luck yet. I presume. Yes?
Sorry, it's Georgina here. Do you want to send me your slides by email and I will share them just as a back?
So why don't the next speaker starts and then I'll be the third one. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Professor Ismid, would you be able to go next?
Yeah, sure. All right. Let's give it a try.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You get it?
Yes, we can see your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Try to get it on the slideshow. All right. Okay, thank you. I hope you can see my slides.
Yes, very clear. Thank you, Professor Ismid.
All right. Okay. So I have to begin with sharing some information about the COVID-19 currently in Malaysia. We are now in October and we are facing the third wave. Actually, we began our lockdown, what we call here as the movement control, the March 18, and at that time things were quite bad. That lockdown went on for about a few months, but we seem to be able to control the disease, where we managed to sort of like flatten the curve somewhere in June. But then COVID-19 raised again, and now we are hit by the third wave. We were hoping that we could get our students back on campus, but as it is now, we have to do the registration online, so no students are coming back on campus. The slide is not moving. All right, okay. Now, I think it's the same as the other countries in the world. Over here in Malaysia, there's about 6 million students. We're talking about primary, secondary, and tertiary students all over the country are affected by the lockdown. In terms of universities, we have 20 public universities and 57 private universities. All of them are affected. When first hit by COVID-19 in March, many of our students had to go back to their hometowns, and some international students, or many international students, went back to their home countries, are now unable to come back to our campus. And we also had quite a number of students who were stranded on campus during the lockdown. And I suppose that the problem is the same as to the other countries around the world. But as far as the national government is concerned, there were 4 main priorities: protect human lives, try to flatten the curve, try to keep the economy afloat. But the one that concerns us the most is about the ensure educational system is still able to function and that students can learn, and that is where we come in. When we went on lockdown in March 18, we started our online learning as early as the 1st of April. And at the same time, we also announced that we will not have face-to-face learning until December 2020. And the university also decided to extend the semester by 4 weeks. And this is to allow the staff and students to adapt to the online teaching and learning. And we also came up with a guideline, mainly to very specific guideline for online teaching during the pandemic. So these are among the actions taken by the university during the initial or the early part of the lockdown. One of our faculties did a survey to look into the student readiness towards online learning implementation. And it's interesting to see that as early as in March and April, more than 50% of the students seem to be have high knowledge in terms of online learning tools. But when it comes to readiness, you can see that there's about 25% of students who shows very low state of readiness for online learning. And this is mainly because many of them are living in hometowns with limited access to internet. Many of them are also living with families where they have to share the internet data with the other family members. And with regard to the online assessment during the lockdown, the numbers are almost the same. We have from moderate to high and very high number of students who are prepared for the online assessment during the lockdown, but we still have quite a significant number. Over here is about 24% of students who are not prepared for online assessment. And if you talk about issues on online teaching and learning, I think I can break it down into 5 main issues. We're talking about adaptability, where switching from the traditional face-to-face classroom to a virtual classroom sometimes makes the learning experience quite different for lecturers and students. And there are some lecturers and there are some students who sort of resist to the changes that we have to make. Computer literacy is also an issue. Some lecturers have limited technological proficiency, and therefore they are not able to create teaching materials suitable for online classes. And there's also the other technical issues where students do not have high bandwidth or strong internet connection that the online classroom requires, and so they have problems to catch up with their online learning. Many students also do not have suitable hardware to use in online classrooms. And we're also talking about time management. It's a difficult task for lecturers and students as online classes requires more time for preparations and intensive work. And quite a number of students also find studying from home is difficult to find a suitable environment to focus on their online learning. And there's also the issue of self-motivation, where self-motivation is essential in online teaching and learning, and some lecturers are unable to gauge student response in online classes and find it difficult in their teaching. And while students easily get distracted and unable to follow what is being discussed in the virtual classroom. This I personally have experienced while teaching in my own class. With regard to the type of learning or type of teaching that we have 3 methods of teaching. One is the synchronous teaching, which is basically no live session, and the lecturer usually for lectures and also for the assignment. And then we have the synchronous online learning, in which this is a live learning session. The lecturer and the students interact in specific virtual space to specific online medium and at specific time. It may also include video conferencing and also teleconferencing. And also we have the task-based learning. And these are carried out activities such as project-based learning and also problem-based learning. Can you still see my slide? Okay. We also did a survey on the effect of online learning. And in the first 2 weeks of April, found out that almost all the courses have been successfully implemented for online learning, especially in the first 2 weeks of April. And most of the courses were run synchronously, while the rest were run asynchronously. And it has to be noted that asynchronous mode of teaching is more important because, especially for students who are experiencing very poor internet connectivity at home. In terms of online teaching tools, at UTM, there seems to be quite a number of online teaching tools which is used. Depends on the lecturers, depends on the classes. And there's quite a variation of methods being used. Over here, we found out that among the most used tools are the WhatsApp. We have our own UTM e-learning. And then we have the WebEx, Zoom, and also the big blue button. Some academic staff also use YouTube, Google Meet, and so on. Now, that was about our virtual learning, but as far as the international office is concerned, we are very much into the student mobility and student exchange. And we used to have quite a big number of students inbound and outbound. And of course, the pandemic has sort of like, this was supposed to be the year. We hosted API 2019, and then we had a lot of partners. We had promising hopes that we're going to get inbound students and we're able to send our students outbound. But of course, because of the pandemic, here we are stuck at home. So we came up with this online global classroom. This is something which just came up about 2 months ago. And the idea is to move beyond the physical mobility classroom and try to integrate long distance online learning and create a virtual student exchange, especially with our partners. And so far, the response from the faculty has been quite good. We now have about 35 programs from various faculties, and each faculty has their own program, which is assigned, and they collaborate with our bilateral partners that we have around the world. So far, we have about 35 programs by faculties, and collaborative partners, we have around 26 partners so far. And this program just started about a month ago. I'm sorry, but I seem to have trouble changing slides. Right. So this is one initiative that we took, and we hope that by doing this, we can still get at least our mobility to be afloat. Right. This is done with our bilateral partners, and we also found out that we can also work better if we work with our network and alliances. And this is another online global classroom that we had under the ATU network, Asia Technological University Network. This is a global culture corner, and we had participants from 4 countries and 6 institutions, from Malaysia, Bangladesh, Indonesia, and also Brunei. Okay. All right. Again, the coronavirus maybe have caused a damper on internationalization, but we see that it also create a need to send our students, even though we can't send them virtually, we can't send them physically. We also have find out that there's a very strong need to still get our students to interact with international students from abroad. And the global online learning in Malaysia is actually not new. Ever since 2015, it has been one of the strategic thrusts under the Malaysia Education Blueprint. It's just that the coronavirus has sort of like accelerated the process for us to implement the global online learning. And in a way, this is also an opportunity because it's also gives us a fast-track move to secure budget and allocate our budget for ICT infrastructure and facilities. It's ranging from upgrading our internet network, replacing our servers. We also managed to allocate a budget for the internet data plan, not only for the students, but also for staff. All right. That's about it from me. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Professor. Well, I hope we can go back to an earlier presentation. Shall we try again?
Yes, I'm trying again. I hope it will work this time. I think it's showing some good signs.
Yep, we can see it. It just looks like you're at the end of the slideshow, so you just need to go back to the start, I think.
Is it? Okay, let me see, because I haven't, it's not, it's yet to appear on my own screen.
Oh, okay. Professor Ismid, could you just stop sharing? Oh, you have stopped sharing. Okay, Professor Mushtak, it looks like it's coming up now. Yeah, wonderful.
Yes, brilliant.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, I wanted to talk about this topic, which is very close to my heart, and I'll go directly into my presentation. So I'm having a picture now on the screen, a picture taken more than 100 years ago at a cigar factory. You see these gentlemen in rows rolling cigar, and there is a gentleman sitting very relaxed reading the newspaper. And when I usually share this in a classroom and ask people to tell me what do they think this person is doing, most of the answers would come around, he's the owner, he's a quality control or person or a supervisor. And all of these answers are very logical, and absolutely they're all wrong as well. So this gentleman is working there as a lector, and this job, you haven't heard of it because it has disappeared. The value that this gentleman adds is his ability to read the newspaper to these workers and entertain them. And the reason why the job has disappeared, I think we know, because the value that he has produced and the way he has delivered it has both the value itself and the channels through which this value is delivered, which is, you know, entertainment that's delivered through technology now, has changed entirely. So I'm really very fascinated by this notion of human jobs and how do they change at different times when we have what we call a revolution, whether it's an agricultural revolution or industrial revolution or the fourth industrial revolution. Now, depending on the surveys or the studies that you read, there seems to be an agreement that there will be a loss or a massive loss of human jobs because of technology. Now, the thing that there is less agreement upon is what is the impact on us. So there are two schools of thought. The first school of thought would think that yes, the jobs will be lost, but don't worry, we've lost jobs in the past and we were able to produce better, higher paying, more satisfying jobs than the jobs that we lost. But there's also another school of thought that says, no, this time it's different. And I, first of all, I would like to share with you a frame of thinking about this challenge to see, you know, which camp or which school you would like to adopt. So personally, I believe that we human beings bring to any endeavor, create value through three types of capabilities or three types of labors: the physical labor, the cognitive labor, and the emotional labor. These labors come at like different levels as well. So the physical labor could start from manual labor and goes through skilled and precision work. Cognitive labor, or ability to think and reason, could start from something as simple as memory, remembering something, to analysis and optimization, and ultimately to critical thinking and creativity. While the emotional capacity or emotional labor is about awareness, empathy, our ability to build trust relationships, and also to act ethically. Now, the x-axis of this graph is not to scale, but it's really time. And you've seen that throughout our history, we have been always on a journey that we are trying to replace ourselves with other form of technology or animal powers to do the work that we are doing. So the shaded area in the graphs are areas that either already been replaced by a machine or something else, or it can easily be replaced should we want that. Now, the vertical lines indicate times of massive change, and we usually call them revolutions. So, for example, the first industrial revolution, which happened around the 1800s, that was the time where there was an explosion in machines that were faster, stronger than us. And that really rendered our physical labor less capable of securing us a job. And that was the time where educational institutions moved into the space and created a lot of courses and degrees and programs so that people who used to do maybe manual work to start now being supervisors, engineers, and accountants, moving from the physical domain to the cognitive domain, a domain that we thought it will always be human. But guess what? As we build better and better computers, they start to really, compete with us in this domain. The 1990s was a watershed moment when a machine was able to beat the reigning human champion in chess. And since then, the machines, the computers are better than us now in chess, in medical diagnosis, in optimization, and many other things. So what is left, if you see to the right of this diagram, the skills or the capabilities that machines have not been able to make, a great sort of progress in, and they are mainly in the emotional domain, and they are also in the area of, let's say, creativity and critical thinking. Precision work refers to, if you are a ballet dancer or someone who is doing a highly precise artistic work, yes, you will still maybe can get a meaningful job through that. Now, this is to me is a very important growth. And if you mute yourself, thank you. And if you notice that first, machines have made very little, if at all, progress in the emotional labor bit. But the skills that we are left on the right-hand side are the skills that are very difficult to learn, quite difficult to teach, and almost impossible to measure using the current way of measurement and assessment. And this is really referred to as the human gap. So the advancement that we have made created a situation whereby our capabilities to deal with the technology and the things that we have put into the world is unable to keep up with. So there is a gap between the complexity that we've created and our ability to deal with that complexity. I would like to argue that the way to deal with this and the future of humanity to remain relevant.
And of course, we're very much looking forward, we hope, to welcoming W2N
International. Yes, thank you very much. So I would like to argue that the way for us to remain relevant in this future is to focus on our emotional labor, on our emotional capacity, and on our emotional potential. So how can we do that? Now, education has always focused on academic achievements, on building professional skills, and that is extremely important. But as we have noticed, increasingly, machines are capable of doing exactly the things that we are preparing our students to do. So what we need is first to make our education focus on the sense of purpose and meaning. So what brings meaning to our lives, and also for the education to focus on building character strengths, to developing values, and also developing soft skills. At the same time, the education needs to declare as one of educational outcomes, the well-being of the students, and how can we build more resilient individuals. So you would see there are three jigsaw pieces in education that are all predicated upon purpose. And finally, when we do all of that, our students, our graduates, our institutions will be able to have an impact, whether it's an economic impact, a cultural, an environmental, a technological, whatever impact that we want to do will be sustainable if we actually start from the sense of purpose. And this is what is called positive education. So it's an education that declares that it's one of its goals, the development of character and well-being next to traditional academic achievement and skills. So I will go very quickly to give some examples of how we do this at Heriot-Watt University. But I just wanted to say that really the challenge that we are facing with COVID has made all that movement in that direction, I think, to be even much more accelerated. So in order to develop the character and the soft skills of the students, we came up with a program. We call it the Empower program. And the program has 6 domains. These are the vertical ones, but also have 4 stages. It starts by this stage, which we call it the Watt level. And the students here gain Watt points rather than marks, and they focus for the entire first year of their study on knowing and leading self. At the next level, which is the kilowatt level, they are focusing on leading teams, and the megawatt level leading communities, and the gigawatt level eventually leading enterprise. The bit that I wanted to talk about here is the fact that the cornerstone of the entire program is that notion of developing an impact statement. So we are asking our students now to think of what impact do they want to have on the world? What kind of, how do they want to use their life, their magic, their capabilities to make the world a better place? And our dream is, when you go to our university and look at the students and ask them what are you doing, or they won't think that you are asking them about the program that they are working towards, but they will think they were asking them about their impact. So they will tell you something like, before I graduate, I'm going to plant 1 million trees, and throughout their lifetime, they're going to remove 100,000 tons of CO2 from the atmosphere. And oh, by the way, I'm doing chemical engineering. So we want the students to really think clearly and deeply about the impact that they want to have. So this is all being very well structured. There is the other element of building the well-being of the community, both students and staff, and we have utilized the Great Dream framework, and this framework sees happiness as having 10 keys to the happier living, and this is something that we see the whole prism see our life through. So we have been working on that before COVID comes upon us, and really now we are seeing that all of that needs to be done digitally, and now it's even becoming more important that to have a clear sense of meaning, and to have that resilience while you are working from home, feeling maybe disconnected from your community. So there are plenty of activities and things that we have digitized and we made available for our students. I give you a quick example. When we went for almost a 3-month lockdown, I prepared a daily 1-minute video, and I shared it with our community of staff and students. And it's so amazing to see so many people found even that gesture to be so helpful and so useful. One thing that I would like, this is my last slide, one thing that I would like to leave you with, which is the importance of the language that we use, because it's positive education and we need to use positive language. So COVID is a challenge, and as the previous speaker said, and it is an opportunity as well, but the word COVID itself has a negative connotation now, and I think we need to reclaim it as something that is positive. So I would like to invite you to think of COVID being communication, being opportunity, being vision, impact, and development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. Very interesting. Shall we move on to the next presentation? The next presentation is about blended learning from crisis to consensus. Professor Matthew Docherty, are you ready? Great.
I'm ready.
I can see the slides.
It's amazing. Well, thanks, folks, for tuning in. I'm going to go through some of our insights, experiences, and lessons learned during the shutdown period last semester, we shut down the whole university, in fact 4 campuses within 3 days. So we went from fully offline to fully online, and we did a survey. About 300 teaching staff gave us feedback as to their experiences. Just before we go into what we learned, what did we already know? Now, quite interestingly, at the beginning of this, the World Bank came out and did a couple of studies in March and April of this year to prepare the world really for the new situation it's never been in. And there was quite a few interesting insights that they found. Firstly, that it's a very difficult and complex undertaking in the best of circumstances to move to online teaching. That very few education systems are even equipped for moving at scale quickly to an online environment. That obviously it's disproportionate, affects students disproportionately. Those poorer in rural areas have less access to hardware and infrastructure. That failure is very common and that we have to learn from our errors in this new environment. And we should expect less of our students. So basically what they're telling us is that we shouldn't have high expectations when we're moving into an online environment. And in retrospect, I think that we've all done really well. We've all come out of it. We've managed the situation. We've kept on teaching, certainly in our university, and we didn't lose a semester. So how did it look for us before we started? We had about 50% of our professors using our learn management systems, but then that 50% was split down into really only 10 of them using it all the time, and 50% that had never used our learn management systems. So quite a high percentage. So why were they not using it? We asked them, and one of the biggest hurdles was apprehension about using the new technology. And another hurdle is definitely if you're giving students tasks to do online and they're not doing them, you don't know how to handle these circumstances. So there was apprehension in there as well. And then it hit, and we all got locked in at home, and we kept on doing the best that we could and coping as well as we could under the circumstances. Now, for us, that meant 85% of us anyway, teaching through Teams in an online synchronous environment. So let's think about that. We used to teach in a classroom to a group of students and do 2-3 hour lectures. And now we're doing the same 2 to 3 hour lectures in an online environment. We have the same modus operandi. All we're doing is using a different channel. More to why that is not good later. 75% though magically now started using our learning management system, which is basically Moodle, which is for us, I'm the head of the digital learning department on campus. This for us was light years of advancement in basically 1 week. We got everyone on board. Now we're using Moodle here. They're using it for tasks and assignments, uploading and downloading, as it is. It's a learn management system for managing the learning. When we asked them what they liked about it, 95% appreciated this new flexibility they had, specifically stating they liked the time saving from not having to commute to work. So there's a lot of aspects that people are liking and appreciating more. And 90% of them did appreciate using new tools and new media, which we were very happy about. Of course, it's not all roses. So we've got some negative feedback, of course. 85% of our teachers missed the interaction with the students, as we do. Teachers are there to teach, to interact. They needed more time to prepare the materials for this new environment, and only 30% had technical issues when going online. And technical issues are often infrastructure when working from home, or the classical one, I don't have admin rights on my university laptop, so I can't put on the software that I need. So that was one aspect. So what was missing? We went on there and we've seen that they're missing the group work, they're missing the interaction, they're missing the collaboration. There's not as many questions coming, there aren't the ideas being generated, and there's no personal contact. So we've managed to keep somehow the information flow going, but we're losing a lot of interaction. So the next stage for us, and part of the questionnaire that we did, was to find out how can we now improve in the future? What do our teachers and students need and expect to be able to function in possibly a second semester of this? What we came to was, and we heard this several times already in this conference, we need to make life easy for students. If we're throwing things at them left and right through email, Zoom, Teams, Google Docs, WhatsApp, they don't know where to look, they don't know where to go. They need a one-stop shop approach. We need to simplify it. Our one-stop shop approach is 2 platforms. We took Moodle for asynchronous tasks, uploading activities, swapping PDFs, things like that. And we're using Teams for more synchronous approach of live lectures. Another thing we've seen is, as we said, we've gone away from a personal based teaching. We're online and we have to keep up emotional engagement. This is key to motivation. If we look at MOOCs with a 95% dropout rate, the reason people drop out is because they're not in the group. And we need to be able to create groups like they used to in the university before, in breaks, study groups, peer groups. We have to create this now online. It's our job as teachers to try to do that through collaboration, collaborative, project-based tasks, group work, and even through peer assessment. To create the feeling of students being in groups together, because that's what's really missing. The rest we can do online. And one of the greatest aspects of this newfound freedom that we've got is learning anywhere and anytime, or everywhere and all the time, as it now is. So we need to be able to provide materials that are cross-platform, that work on all devices, that are available anywhere, anytime. So basically asynchronous, pre-recorded, back to an inverted classroom approach that students can access when they want to, when they have time. Certainly when you've got half of your students on a different continent. That's what we have now. Our materials also need to reduce cognitive load to stop students being overloaded. As you'll see by this slide, this is how we shouldn't be doing it. I put this slide in specifically so you can look at it and imagine your students sat at home looking at things like this for 2 hours. If they're in a classroom with you, you can see that they're drifting off, that they're asleep. We used to get things thrown at us at school, pieces of chalk. You can't do that in an online environment. I don't know if people are still there cognitively or even physically. So we need to keep it simple for them. We need to reduce it, break it down into micro-learning chunks. And then when we go online, use active learning to try to implement the knowledge. We need to change not only the medium now, but the methodology behind it. We cannot do the same as we did before. And another aspect, the final aspect that we saw, is that assessment is very tricky online. You're not sure who sat behind the computer. You don't know if they're cheating or not. God forbid they might be cheating, because obviously when they're in an exam, they're not cheating, but they do. But now we've got low control over it. And all of the distance learning institutes and the MOOCs and the courses are all assignment-based, assessment-based, formative, rather than summative final exams. So now what we can do is we can break it down into tasks, into assignments, into videos, students doing things at home and submitting their work, so that we can formatively assess them, and more importantly, formatively give them feedback throughout the semester, so that they don't get a shock at the end of it that they failed because they haven't understood, but that they get led through the learning process by a colorful array of different techniques during the semester to reduce the dropout rate. And that's it, folks. That's what we basically looked at. It was a quick overlook at our results, and let's see if there's any questions later. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for sharing your experience. We are just about to start the last presentation for today about improving social presence in online classes using smart interactive scripts. And I can see the presentation being already uploaded. I'm assuming we're ready to go.
Yes, great. Thanks a lot, and looking forward, and it's a pleasure for me to share our experiences with so-called interactive scripts. And so it is about improving social presence in online classing using exactly these smart interactive scripts. Next slide, please. Yes, social presence, and that we also heard from a lot of presenters today. Social presence, interactivity, we learned, active learning, that's what Matthew also said, the collaborative task. That's, of course, key factors. And it came particularly clear during the coronavirus disease when the lecture halls were empty and we had to perform all the courses in online courses via web conferences. Next slide. So we thought, how can we improve interactive, how we can place small cooperative tasks, project-based learning. And so we remember we had already very positive experiences using the smartphones and tablet PCs, mobile systems, because students bringing these tablet PCs and smartphones anyway in the classroom. So we thought, why not using these instruments for example, interactive calculation in some engineering areas. What you see here is a MATLAB mobile app where we have implemented Euler's method to solve a problem to give the speed of a skydiver. So, and you see with a few lines of codes here, you can maintain really an interesting example. Also, you can perform calculations which are very difficult to do with a paper and a pencil. Next slide, please. So we thought, how can we further improve this idea? So, and we thought we tested with the smart interactive scripts. So the idea is, or the concept is that the scripts, so you can put content, as you know already from standard scripts, graphs, equations, tables, everything. You can put everything there, but you can also additionally place code, lines of code, and you can online then share these online codes, and you can let them run, and you get immediately the result of an exciting example. So we have experiences with two interactive scripts. It's one from MATLAB, it's called MATLAB Live Script, and one is an open source tool, it's Jupyter Notebook. So both very promising tools. Yeah, and I will show you in the next slide how does these interactive scripts look like. Next slide, please. So here you see a live script which is implemented with a Jupyter Notebook. As mentioned, graphs, equation, text, no problem. But in addition, you see here you can place line of codes. You can modify them. You can edit them and execute directly within the script, and that makes it pretty interactive and yeah, fancy and challenging for the students. Furthermore, you can add some didactic elements. You can place sliders where you can vary, for example, physical parameters, and you get immediately a look what happens if, for example, I change the resistivity in an RC circuit in electrical engineering, or what happens, and you can see it directly here. And this has a really slow threshold for the students to play around with. Next slide. So how can we participate in our lecture courses? I brought here for you the communication pathways in a web conference. So you see here two students, it's Mike Müller and Paul Smith, and you see a lecturer, in this case it's me. And you see, we have a lot of different communication pathways. So the students, they sit in front of their interactive scripts, and also the lecturer. And so what happens now, we can see on the next slide, where I came up with an exemplary course of a chat. For example, what can happen? Mike Müller to everybody, hello, how can I solve this problem using a vector? So Paul Smith has the same problem. He said, I have the same question. How can I use the vector indices in the loop? And me as a lecturer, I could do this, what I can actually also do right now in the chat. So that is what you can also immediately see. I put a snippet of code, which maybe is the missing link to his dedicated solution. And the students, they can copy from the chat this small snippet of code, and then they can perform the calculation in their own dedicated interactive scripts. Yeah, so and that makes a lot of interactivity. It makes yeah, a good, very good communication. Yeah, it is very suitable for all kind of project-based or problem-centered learning activities. Next slide. Yeah, conclusions so far. The smart interactive scripts help us to transform a lot of face-to-face courses into online courses. Typical communication channels can be added, so we can place a video, audio, chats, comments, and so on, especially in problem-based learning. And they can help to reduce the workloads for the students because they can do the preparation, the calculation, the documentation in one single document. And if they are ready, they can convert it to PDF documents. They uploaded it in our learning management system, and the job is done. For example, if you have a practical course or whatever, a training course, then you have all the documents ready with very smart and reduced workloads for the students. So I hope I could make some progress in the timing, and thanks a lot for your interest and looking forward to your questions.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the speakers for very interesting presentations. Now we're going to move to Q&A. I cannot see many questions being pasted in the chat. So perhaps if you want to use the raise hand function to ask your questions, we could start with that.
Albina, I'll just show in the chat that Professor Klaus Zeppenfeld has asked if the slide from Professor Mushtak in Heriot-Watt Malaysia on COVID, positive interpretation of COVID, can be shared. And I've just got a bit of a sort of question as well. I was really sort of pleased to hear the positive language and the sort of thoughts around empowerment of students and the sort of impact of global learning online, and Matthew's sort of crisis to consensus, I thought was a really interesting sort of way to phrase that movement we've had. But how do we think it's impacting on our lecturers and our academics and our institutions? Do we feel that the sort of positive change that perhaps students are now feeling in terms of moving towards that feeling of empowerment and learning online is felt by some of the staff that are delivering some of the solutions to the challenges that we're facing?
Can I try to address this?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I really think that the change that we had to go through very quickly was really stressful, I believe, for the entire community. I can hear myself back. I don't know if you could, I think, Matthew, maybe if you could just mute yourself, I thought. Yeah? Yes, thank you. The other day I was talking to a group of my colleagues, and I told them, I think, you know, there is a post-traumatic stress disorder, but there's also post-traumatic growth. And the way we go in either direction is the narrative that we are seeing. And I think we need to continue telling the people about the effort that we are putting in, whether we are staff or students, so that they appreciate the part that we are doing. And I think the stories that we tell ourselves, whether we are students or staff, of why we are doing this and how important it is for the students and their families will make all the difference. Because any one individual person sitting at home could easily feel disconnected, could easily feel, oh, the management is not really taking care of me, or they haven't really empowered me, or they haven't given me the tools. And I think that narrative that goes into our heads is something that we need to work on and continuously try to turn it into as positive as we can.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Any other comments about that particular core question? Matthew, I've seen you've had your hand up. Did you want to ask a question or pose a comment?
If I may, I was going to ask you actually, Albina, about, you talked about COIL. And that's more of a term, of an ideology, isn't it? Rather than, I was kind of missing, how do you do it? Is there a software behind it? How is it implemented?
It's a good question, and there's no easy answer to it, to be honest. We view it as a tool. It's like in traditional classrooms, historically, we would use a case study and hand out paper to students. That's how we view COIL. However, there's no one description of it to say, okay, this is the tool that we're using. We're using any tool available, to be honest. It can be Teams, it can be Zoom to connect people synchronously. But equally, it could be something that does that asynchronously, whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's Kaizala, or it's any other app that works in different countries as well, because there are many countries that pose restrictions on what kind of IT tools we can use. So anything really that will do the job. And the main question that we're starting is the learning objectives. So what we're trying to achieve, what we want students to learn through that interaction, and then we try to match the tool that will enable that to happen.
Okay,
I guess.
Interesting.
If you're interested and anyone else is interested in finding more about COIL, we do have our website. You can just Google Coventry University Collaborative Online International Learning, and it gives you lots of examples of projects we've done before and we're currently doing, and what kind of tools they are using.
Okay.
And I think that's a good start.
Yeah, thanks.
I think there's a question in the chat for me.
Would you like me to pose that to you, Professor Mushtak?
Oh, well, maybe for other people so that they can hear. I'm fine, yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure everyone's able to see the chat. Do you want me to do that, Albina?
Sorry. Yes, please. I was trying to unmute myself.
No problem. So Dr. Ibrahim Gambo from the University of Teknologi, Malaysia, has got a question for Professor Mushtak. Based on history and everyday happening, we have seen how things keep on changing despite the disruptive paradigm shifting of technology, and that in many ways creates a fortune, in some cases as earlier pointed by one of the speakers, how COVID-19 has fast-tracked in digitalizing the educational system that was planned way ahead. How could technology take over our future graduates, as you mentioned, and what does our education need to do or put in place to avert that, so that the world won't be a place with so many unemployed graduates?
So first of all, I'm very optimistic, and I believe that the future is human. And if you think of value, at the end of each value exchange point, there need to be human. There are machines now, they buy and sell to each other, but eventually what says that this thing is worth, what says the Mona Lisa is worth 1 billion ringgit, oh, $1 billion, sorry. It's because a human being is willing to pay that price. So the value by definition is human. And I think what education needs to do is really to focus on that human potential. So when we develop engineers and actuaries and psychologists and accountants and all sorts of professionals, we need to, yes, develop the technical bit, which is really we are very good at. We know how to accredit it, we know how to measure it and so on. But we really need to focus on creating graduates who are able to connect with people, able to work with teams, able to make sense of the world, able to act ethically. And if you think about it, this is what has been asking for forever. Now, I think every time the technology improves and makes something that we use the human for, makes it, be done by the machine, we are really pushed to go and fulfill our ultimate potential. And I am very optimistic for the future of education, but I think it will be a place where people go there to know about themselves, to know about the kind of magic that they are having. And, people need to start talking maybe like that, philosophically and in a way that focuses on the human potential, really, because if it is just balancing the book that you need, maybe a machine will do it. But if you need how to use accountancy so that you change the mind of a community and make a certain decision, then you will need an emotionally intelligent accountant, a human, to do all of that for you.
Thank you very much. That's a very interesting answer. I would like to believe that as well, personally. Georgina, I think there's a question from you as well in the chat.
There is. I am aware that we're actually about 4 minutes past time, and the next session starts in 10 minutes, which is the WTUC session. So I don't know if you want to leave the question or if you want to make closing comments now, but my question was just really about to the panelists of, we've heard so many different solutions and some of them really specific examples such as Peter's and others sort of approaches to how they've tackled this significant challenge, and there's so much knowledge and expertise within the WTUM member institutions, and I wonder if there's appetite and drive to share this between members further than these sort of small sessions that we're having today, and do panelists think that's something that the institutions internationally do enough of, and could this happen?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Georgie. Also from my point of view, it would be a pleasure for me to share with the colleagues here, because the scripts I'm right now developing with a team of students, it is public anyway, so it would be a pleasure to share with you. Let me know. I can send you the links to GitHub servers, for example, and then everybody can have a look to it and look whether it is also suitable for their own courses. Thanks a lot.
Great, thank you, Peter.
Great. Just to add to it, and I guess try to finish as well the session today. I personally do strongly believe in sharing best practice, and as I'm not fully aware what platforms they exist through the network and through the Congress itself, because it's my first event and I had an amazing experience so far, and there's so many interesting presentations and perspective and experiences that I've heard so far. I believe that if there's things that perhaps you've listened to today as a delegate or through other presentations, definitely that's something that we would all want to hear about in the future as well. So if there's opportunities to share it through blogs or other platforms, I think, Georgina, that would be great to share with participants how that practically could happen. I strongly believe in the power of education, and I believe in the power of internationalization as well. And while we move to online learning more and more, and people do to stay sometimes quite isolated in their own homes, and we do still have to social distance ourselves. I think we've heard really good examples of how resilient we are as a higher education system, and how creative and innovative we are to make things happen for students and for institutions as a whole. So thank you very much to all the speakers. Please feel free to add anything that you would like to say at the end. And if there's no more questions from delegates today, I think we'll come to a close.
Thank you so much, Albina, and thank you to all our speakers today. Really interesting to hear all the perspectives from our members and around the world.